Hello, I am Megan Dutta, editor-in-chief of LaunchCode. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. I'm going to start by introducing our panelists, and they'll tell you a little bit about themselves. Rob, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
Thank you. I'm Rob Badnock, partner at TAD. It stands for Technology, Architecture, and Design, a design consultancy headquartered in New York City. We also have a new office in London, and we specialize in digital experience design, focus on audiovisual, but also all forms of media. We have a visual practice as well with content creators, in addition to the typical AV consultancy that we all know and love. So thank you for being here.
And Joey.
My name's Joey D'Angelo. I'm an AV consultant, going on 27 years, I guess, now. Yeah.
My name is Bren Walker, and I'm a partner at Kierkegaard, where I lead the Integrated Systems Design Group. We do primarily performing arts venues and performing arts education facilities.
Great. My name's Mark Peterson. I am from Shen Milson Wilkie. We are a global firm, multidiscipline firm, and one of the practices is audiovisual technology, and I run that globally, and we have over 250 people, and we're across the world. But I'm thinking of what we do is a mix, right? So we have acoustics, we have IT, security, low voltage, and it all comes together, right, in building out solutions for clients.
So let's start by defining what your role is as a consultant, and how has that evolved over the past several years, and how is it likely to change in the next few years?
Does this mean I have to go first because I'm
Go
sitting
first,
here?
yep.
So my role, there's both the inward-facing role, being in the firm's management, as well as the outward-facing role in what we do as a firm. Inwardly, I lead our systems design practice, which is the group of us that do the engineering behind audiovisual and media systems. Outwardly, our role as design consultants has definitely evolved even since I joined the firm about 7 years ago. I've been a consultant now for 22 years. When I began, it was very much in service of architecture and architects. The consultant was a consultant to another designer. And I was very much purely servicing the client, the architect, as an advisor, somebody who makes recommendations but does not assert himself as an artist or an actual person who has an idea or an opinion on how something should be done. That's now evolved for me personally in my career. Our clients are end users predominantly, so the actual enterprise, the actual firm that is responsible with their leadership for real estate and capital planning to make decisions on whether or not to build a project, which has put the focus on, in my world, on the question of why. So not just beginning with the project as a preordained, preconceived notion that others have set forth, but sitting at the table, and this is going to get to a later question, I think, about when in the process we engage. I've seen consulting evolve in two ways. We are now involved in asking the question why, and we are also in a position to assert our opinions as to how something should be done. We're required to be creative, and we're required to have an opinion that we back. And those are two evolutions I've seen, at least in my neck of the woods as a consultant, and I understand if that's different from others. But
I think Joey's going to have a very different opinion because he has trying to change the world of consultancy, I'd say.
Yeah, the role of consulting and how it's changed in the last, so I've been doing this since 1998, and it was just the most amazing career path that I kind of happened on because I used to install car stereos, and I put a stereo in Ethan Salter's car at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and his dad was Charles Salter, who had a consulting firm that did acoustics and AV in San Francisco, and his dad was like, when does this guy graduate? What major is he in? So I had this tremendous opportunity to stop working in a garage in 100-degree heat and become an AV consultant, and it was just such a blessing. And when I started as an AV consultant, consultants were this highly sought after, very specialized, very talented group of people, and you had to have one on every project. And for 10, 12 years, that's the way it was. We're these all-knowing, people that were the only people in the world that knew how to do a video conference room or, put a projector in the right place or whatever it was. But then slowly over the last 5, 6, 8 years, now all the enterprises have AV engineers that are on their staff working for them. And I actually view the role of a consultant as really just taking the people who hire us and making their dreams come true with the best drawings, specifications, and documents possible. That is it. We're not, if we need to nudge them in a certain way, you really might want to not want to think about trying this or I did that back in, whatever. But really, we're just there to make them look like rock stars, so that their careers advance and our careers advance and everybody's happy. Every project is just like it's like a football game, and we just need to get the ball over the goal line and just be humble and work as hard as possible. That's it.
Okay, so my story is different. I've only been in consulting for 3 years. Prior to joining Kierkegaard, I've been at Kierkegaard for 9 years, but before that, I worked in music and music tech and in software. So I saw an opportunity to come into this field because I think UI is everything and design is everything. And we are consultants, but we're designers first and foremost. And as designers, we provide feedback to the architects. We work on a lot of architect-led projects, and so we help them understand what they can and cannot do. But we also originate ideas. And in the time that I've been at Kierkegaard, I watched as AV was invited earlier and earlier in the process. So there were times when you might get that call at 50% DD, and we still get those, don't get me wrong, where they forgot to hire the AV person. But now I'm working on projects in programming, and I'm working on projects where we're the lead and the architect is basically following us. So it's a lot of fun. And it's not so much just specifying as it is really having creative design ideas that can help people do new things. Everyone talks about, at least in our vertical, they talk a lot about innovation, right? And everybody is looking for innovation somehow. Money is attached to innovation, money is attached to technology. And we're in the best position with our clients to help them achieve that and to get those extra dollars from their funding sources. So.
And Bren, you're also a pure consultant, right? So I think that all of us up here, I'm sure, I see in the audience we've got installers, we've got other consultants that at some point wear a consultant type of hat, right? But in this case, our role is we do not have any relationship of buy in terms of the products themselves. So it gives us a sense of neutrality, which is a very tightrope, because at the same time that we're specifying a product, we want to match that product with the client's requirements. Our influence is unique because our influence into the product lines, you and I are both on a couple of these councils, helping to get the messages up into the product space of what our clients needs, what's missing. And I think in our role as in that consultant capacity, what I wanted to share with you is I call this the fourth wave. Now maybe we're hitting the fifth wave, maybe the pandemic screwed this up, but first wave was back at the time, I think you mentioned before, projection screen and projector, right? And consultant was brought in to do the heavy lifting calculations or something like that. Then we had that video conferencing world where everyone had a different standard, right? And we had all kinds of stuff, the Tambergs and VTEL and all this stuff happening. We had to figure that stuff out. And then we went AV over IP, right? So we're in that transition now, that whole network, it becomes mature, right? The spaces that we're working with go through this transition, this churn of what do I do? How do I now? It's about experience, right? Do I use Teams? Do I do Zoom? What's the right? And now we're seeing obviously this blending of the content and the technology, and thinking through empathetically. I said this right to you, Rob, before. How we need to empathize, put ourselves in the positions of the user. And when we come to our design team, because we're part of the team, as Joey's talking about, we are coming as a team member. So in many ways, we are the glue, or hope to be the glue, to look out for how to communicate with an integrator, what those requirements are. What was the client actually asking for? When you look at it at a piece of paper, it's difficult to interpret. How do I communicate the specifications in a way that actually creates the entire experience? And that's the challenge that we look to succeed at.
And I would say too that it's not just the experience it's the experience of the operators, it's the experience of the audience, whoever that is. So I think about users very broadly, and I think it falls with us more than ever before to find ways to make technology easier for people to use, no matter what level they're at, and understanding that people have certain perceptions about what technology should do because of what works in their home, right? I was joking with someone the other day that I'm on a project where an architect asked us if we could make the front fills Bluetooth. Now, in a 1,000-seat concert hall. Now, never in a million years would we do this, at least not today, right? But she has a sense of technology from what she can access in her home that sets certain expectations, and it's a big part of our job to level out those expectations with what the practical reality is for Pro AV.
And the
You have
emotional
to-
side.
You have to do it in a really nice way too.
There's one other group for whom we have to have empathy. It's not just the users, it's not just the other members of the design team, it's the capital planners and leadership of these global firms that on whom thousands of futures rest on their shoulders, who need to have confidence that the decisions that we're guiding them to make are correct, or at least defensible, or can be changed over time in appropriate ways. So to do these things in an advisory capacity is another group that we have to be considered with.
Mindful we must be.
Yoda impression, check.
One of the things several of you alluded to was that AV professionals aren't at the table soon enough. So what are you doing as consultants to remedy that?
Well, so it hasn't been an issue for me in recent years. As I said, that's been a natural progress as a result of where we found ourselves in our business development and our pursuits of end user clients and the enterprises themselves. Of course, I say that. There are several cases, just like Bren mentioned, where we are invited too late, despite being engaged by the end user. But having a strategy scope of work is a major part of that, to get in before the project has been conceived of and to be a participant in the process of deciding whether or not there should be a project and what the questions should be that the project or solution should answer. So to participate at that phase of it means engaging at a different level, again, with C-suite, with capital planners, with real estate leadership of these companies. It's the best thing that I can hope to do. We learn so much from the integration community. It's the best thing I can do then to contribute back to the industry is to be talking about what our clients, all of our clients, are asking for and what challenges they have to surmount, is by getting at the table with them from a business development capacity in the start of the process. Yoda?
So there's a famous general, I don't know which general he was, but the saying goes that, someone said, "Sir, we're surrounded," and he said, "Perfect, I've got the enemy exactly where I want them to be." And, if we get brought in and, by the way, next week drywall goes up and we need a complete infrastructure design and whatnot, like, I'm just happy to have me and my team there to do that work. And I don't view it as a problem. I view it as a challenge and just something that always happens, Don't worry, we'll get this sorted out. How hard do we need to work? We'll just do it. My firm's big thing, and everybody that knows me knows this, is it's all about drawings, and it doesn't exist if it's not dimensioned. It doesn't exist if it's not scope delineated. It doesn't exist if it's not modeled. And if we're brought to the table early or late or whatever, we're happy to be there early. We're not unhappy if it's late. You can't fix a problem that you don't know is in existence. So if someone calls us up and it's like, we just get to work and be happy about it. Like I could, write an article in every magazine and, go to every company and do a presentation about how great AV consultants are and how much better it's if you involve us in all your projects early and whatnot. But, that's great, but sometimes it's nothing you can do about it. So I don't know. I don't know how to solve that problem, but I know what to do when the problem comes my way.
Well, and I think this is dependent upon the kinds of projects that you work on. So we work on a lot of architect-led projects, and for me, it's been about educating architects. And one of the things that has been extremely effective is I'm involved with interviews. So before they've even won the project, I'm helping to shape what the technology is going to be. And I'm happy to say that we've had some projects that they've won because of our technology contribution. That only has to happen one time against their primary competition for them to come back to you the next time. So my goal is actually to bring projects to architects and for me to start choosing which architects I want to work on with which clients. And then I'm in a much better position, right? So educating them And I also think, and I know that if you're in the consulting world, it's long been a strategy to, if a project is competitively bid for design work, to get on as many teams as possible to increase your chances of winning. I don't believe in that. We have a few number of architectural partners we work with, and those are the ones who I'm going to work on strategy with and invest my time with. If I'm on 18 different teams, but 16 of them don't really know who I am or what I can do, I don't think that that's going to be a winning answer. I don't think that we're going to have a winning presentation in the interview. And I want to be one of the drivers in the interview because I want the client thinking about technology from the moment they meet us. And from my view, that gives us the strongest position moving throughout the whole project.
So in my thought process, if we look at what we say too late or too much time has evolved, we're looking at test fits. We get engaged in the project, and they're giving us a floor plan or a layout, and they think they've figured out where the seats are going to go, and where the rooms are, and what size the rooms are supposed to be. So we call that they've passed through the programming phase or the conceptual phase. They've gotten to the point where they want to get, as Joey was saying, into the drawings, right? We've done all that work. We know what we want. So when we're looking at the test fits, that's what what we're seeing and trying to figure out: is this the right model for you? Is this going to work for you? Particularly now, post-pandemic, our role here is to recognize that those users are going to be much more fluid in the spaces, and what was previously a successful collaboration of spaces, right? So how you walk through to meet with technology, how you create what I call collisions of people from different ideas, different groups coming together, and also teams. So you have productivity, you have creativity, you have innovation. That thought process and dynamics is key. So I want to listen to hear, have they gone through that? And it may not be us, it may be another group that's working through that process, and they have standards that they're applying. So we look to see that, particularly training rooms, indivisible rooms, or rooms that are off-centered, and you can't put a screen up there, folks. You don't, or acoustics red flag because you haven't thought through how these spaces will coordinate with each other. So some of the things we do there is get through the programming or the requirements as efficiently as possible, as effectively as possible. And one of the ones that I like to use is a matrix or decision-making model. Typically you hear good, better, and best. The clients don't really know what they don't know. So if you're asking them, what do you like or what do you want, they're really going to ask us, I think you were saying, well, what is innovative? What is new? And then you're looking to get a reaction. So that's a flip book, that's images, that's case studies, there's examples, and really get into the spot where you're feeling their emotional contact. Yes, you're right, consultant, you've kind of got it. Or the reverse, no, you're missing the point here. This is what we're looking for. And beyond, actually I would say not the tech back, more about workflow and how they're going to work as a team, how they're thinking through the spaces and different groups and divisions and how they're looking through it. And then you can create consistency, right? Because I want to effectively do this, I want to have a consistent experience for them all the way through the spaces and not have a ramshackle, which typically happens, particularly at the table, right? A lot of our work, actually, believe it or not, happens at the floor. It's infrastructure. I mean, the technology is going to change rapidly. What we need to do is future-proof the infrastructure so it's going to work year after year. Because we're 2 or 3, Rob, right, many years ahead of the time. Yeah. And so whatever we see at the show here, I mean, that's gone and blown by. So we're looking to see where it's going so we can help create the pipes or wireless capabilities or capacities to make that future work. I'm not sure if that answers the question. Stop there.
If I could just add something. So I think it's worth noting, Kierkegaard is an acoustics firm first, right? It was formed 46 years ago. Concert halls, theaters, performing arts centers. So it's a very different client from the corporate client. Our clients, most of them have never done this kind of building before, and they will likely never do it again.
Interesting, yeah.
So they
different
need,
approach.
It's a much different approach, and they need more advice. And they also, a lot of the times, the projects are, we're designing projects today that aren't going to open until 2025, 26, 27. So the people we're even working with are not even going to be there to operate the facility. The operator is in college, okay? So I think that's a very different model in terms of who you're dealing with and what their expectations are. and their need to be led more than responded to.
You know,
Great point.
it's really interesting though, because I'm hearing about, good, better, best flip books. You know, get them out of the idea of using Bluetooth for front of house monitors and stuff like that. And consulting is very different depending on the practice. There's some firms that are better working with architects and whatnot, but like a lot of our clients are literally here today walking the show floor, and we're going to hear from them next week, about some product they discovered that they want to do, and off to the races we go. There is no good, better, best. This is what we want, make it the best. And, there's no thought from them as to what the infrastructure needs to be, or the cooling or the circuiting or anything like that. They just know, oh, we've got a consultant, they'll handle all that, but we want, this crystal LED.
Yeah,
Go
and-
make it happen.
And meanwhile, our client is wrapping up grades for the semester or, closing or opening a new show. They're not here. They rely on us to be here to tell them.
It's an interesting cliche that always turns out to be true, which is that every client is unique. And I will say some of my favorite clients are absolutely the ones with whom we share a partnership and a collaboration. So we're doing a facilitation of a discussion, we're doing the flip books, we're doing the presentations to get things going, and then together we may identify that there needs to be a lab or a sandbox to be constructed so that we can perform a learning exercise as a team and do a proof of concept on a technology that really necessitates we discover together. So we hold hands and jump off the cliff together and do it in a protected fashion in
Thelma
a
and
sandbox.
Louise.
Exactly right. And to do that in a way that allows us to share in partnership and collaborate with the client and innovate as a result is one of my favorite among all the unique client circumstances.
Yeah, we're just like labor. That's what we are.
So, Joey, are
Yeah.
you bummed
What about?
about the way consulting has changed? You seem bummed, Joey.
Oh, no. So I think it's the greatest challenge that we've faced, and everything that we do every day is built specifically to meet that challenge. And what we want to do with the results with everything that we end up with as part of that is we want to say, this is how we do it. Do you want to do it too? Because I'm sick and tired of going to a project kickoff meeting and they're like, here's the electrical engineer, here's the structural engineer, oh, and here's the AV engineer. Oh,
End of the agenda item,
And-
right? Last on the
yeah,
agenda.
and then you back when drawings used to be rolls and they were on vellum and blueprints, but the AV drawings were at the back of the set. Or when they send out all the drawings, the AV drawings are the last PDF in the file. I want what we do to be the first drawings on the top of that file, on the top of the stack. Because what we do is the single most visible and most important part of the building, short of air conditioning in Texas in the summer. So, I want to really elevate what we do.
We should be careful what we wish for, by the way,
Yeah,
because AV now increasingly is the one
Outdoors.
thing that either guarantees or prevents success
Well,
in the
that's
operation
it.
of these spaces.
There's one of these in every lobby, and if this thing's not on,
Yep.
ooh, the building's ugly.
The effectiveness of communication and work and the artistic experience is entirely contingent upon these drawings that are shuffled off to the back, which belong in the front.
I like the projects where my drawings are the only drawings.
Well, there is
and
always
maybe,
that.
And maybe there's a structural stamp somewhere on something, but
I worked at a manufacturer for a year and a half, and I got to see drawings from other companies, and we have to do better. So I'm not bummed. I want to do better. I want to work harder, and I want to teach that and share it. And it's coming. You'll see.
Joey, seeing that, is that what made you want to go back to consulting, is to make it better for everybody?
So the waves of consulting, I'm the only one who knows where to spot a projector or how to, get the right stuff for the Polycom codec or the Tandberg or whatever.
Well, we had to figure these things out, right?
Yeah, but I feel like consultants kind of squandered that importance and conducted themselves kind of arrogantly. And what I've realized now is that because of that, all the big enterprise clients have their own internal AV engineering departments, and we're just, kind of almost clerical. But man, we've got to do better with the drawings. We've got to dimension everything. We've got to scope delineate it. We've got to get as much information as we can, because it's not cost effective for a lot of firms to go to that level of detail. So we're working on kind of improving that and making it rapid and accurate. And then I want to I want to elevate what we all do. I want to say this is how we did it.
It's
I think the way we do that is by driving the conversation. Instead of waiting for whoever is leading the design team to come to us and ask the question, for us to drive that discussion and to bring new things to them that they're not thinking about. Because if you're working with architects anyway, they don't know. They don't know. And they really don't want to know because they got to worry about doors and, fire safety and a whole bunch of other things that we don't have to think about. So,
Yeah,
And
but
if the
early
question
on
is
those
about-
conversations, they're starting to provide those pieces of information that then we have to uncouple and put in the right solutions for them. One of the things that we do in our practice here when we're doing those larger auditoriums and arenas and theater spaces is use the BIM model, the three-dimensional model, use VR, and get the clients to see the space. When I say client, I'm talking about bringing the architect with the owner or whoever's representing the client and have them actually see what it feels like to be in the space. Because I think many times the reason why there's this sort of separation is because they see it on, it's not the same, right? You see this on a piece of paper, but when you actually go in the space, like, wow, that's a lot smaller. Those walls are a lot, I didn't know, the plans are complex. And I got to read 3 different sets, but when you can put on and see and walk around, and fortunately, because we are all working, I think, in three-dimensional now, right? That everything we do is compounded by all the other trades when we're doing our drawings, and you shift and change. So seeing the space in real, if you can do that. Now with the pandemic and everyone being remote, that's put a whole nother spin on how you get people to see, because I believe that the relationship that we have, the trust, we build the trust, right? We build that trust not by just saying what you want, but by getting them to, you have to earn it, right? You have to give them the sense of accuracy, efficiency, looking out for their best interest, but also listen and getting reaction and buy-in. I want to have a buy-in. I want them to kick the tires. One of the first things we'll do is with any of these companies here is have a video call. Have them hear what the story is. Is this the right fit for you? Maybe it's at a different level that you're talking about, but anyways.
Go ahead, sorry.
in addition, we're all working in 3D, right? So, and I would just say that the drawings are the lingua franca. That's what people judge us by.
Oh, yeah.
But we have to go beyond the drawings if we want people to actually understand our intention. And the 3D renderings are one way of doing that, but also just like walking people through and showing them devices and having a conversation and not relying on the fact that people understand how to read the drawings, because most of the people on the client side, at least for us, have no idea how to read the drawings. Or some people do not take in information visually. And so the whole process for them is a challenge to try to imagine things in space. So I see it as part of our job is to help them understand what they're going to get and look for the different ways, understand that people learn differently, that it's up to us to be aware of making things as universal as possible in our presentations and considering accessibility in terms of how we deliver our work.
Great.
Well
put.
the 3D thing, I think, is, so building information modeling in Revit and Unity, which is in the works, like that whole thing is, I think it's going to save the technology consulting profession, because you really have to model everything. You can't model spots and dots. You've got to put the box in the model. You've got to put the mount in the model. If the projector needs Unistrut, you have to put the Unistrut in the model. And we've had to invent new ways to produce drawings. And at our firm, we have roughly, a third of the people are BIM specialists, and they're in India and Cairo. It's 24/6 production. And then a third are what we call virtual integrators. And this is a new role in the industry. We're trying to make it into a thing.
Joey, is it a new role or did you invent the role?
What?
Is it a new role or did you invent the role?
Well, it's a new role that we invented. That's why I say we're trying to make it a thing. I don't know if it'll, but we call them virtual integrators. And what we're doing is we're taking really great people who have installation, and skills along that line. And then the last role we have is the associate consultant. They're the project-facing people. They're the ones that go figure out, what you should and shouldn't do, and ease the client through the project. And then they turn around, they go, all right, virtual integrators, this is what goes in each of these rooms, and we have software that lets them know exactly what it is and has all the specs. And then the virtual integrators go to the BIM specialists and they virtually integrate the entire system. So before a room is even printed out on a drawing sheet, the mounts, the cables, the devices, the transmitters, the floor boxes, the cable cubbies, speakers in the ceiling, all that stuff, we're producing drawings that are curated by people who actually know how to install, because I think that was one of the big problems the consultants had, is they do these drawings and they put this projector floating out in space. They wouldn't show how it actually gets mounted, how it gets structurally attached. There
It's more collaborative with the boots on the
wouldn't be any
ground and the
data.
people that have the hands-on.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
the
important.
integrators and the end users, the clients, are way more appreciative of the whole process, because they know, he knows technology. He can, help us pick a video wall, but he can also make sure that it gets installed correctly.
It's
and
also those operations staff at the clients you mentioned, many of them used to be in our world. They were integrators, they were consultants as well.
Well, let me jump on that one, because I think we do have some integrators out here. This transfer of information, right? You create the set, you get a bid spec out there, and it's got to get awarded, and the installer is going to pick this up, and they're going to reset their own drawing sets, or they're going to redefine.
we don't need them.
Well, my point was that in the effect of a successful design bid spec, right, allows for the integrator to be able to pick up that package and make as little mistakes as possible, right? So one of the things we've done is counting those objects, right? So when you have large-scale projects and you have hundreds of rooms and hundreds of spaces, you need to be able to count all those different types of devices within the model and match that to your equipment lists, right? And so you need schema, so your device IDs, methodologies, so that you can count on an equipment list against the drawings, against the system flows, right? And that there's a one-for-one all the way through there. So that I can see that the number of devices, if they change, if the rooms change here, I got to match that with so the accuracy and effectiveness at scale and at speed and efficiency is what we're expected to do now, right? Is in shorter period of time, deliver those drawings, make whatever changes, because they have to change all the time, and then issue them out to the integrator in a way that they can use that material.
And increasingly, the drawings are going to be automated,
Yeah.
right?
I don't know. I've never heard of automating anything.
So, some of you have mentioned in our offline discussions that your role as a consultant is to answer the client's challenges, irrespective of whether it's met by an AV solution or another path, which helps drive the industry forward. Can you share some examples of this?
I think that's my fault. I might have sent that email.
What was
offering
that? What was that question
barely
you stuck
hear.
us with, dude?
So sometimes your role as a consultant is to figure out the client's challenges,
Right.
and that might not involve an AV solution. It could be another path, but that's moving the industry forward. So how are you doing that? And Rob,
I made that point. The context of that was the one differentiation amongst us as consultants versus manufacturers and integrators and dealers is, as you mentioned, we're pure in that we do not have alliances with these other vendors. And so we're not in a position to make profit. Specifying equipment, specifying more of a thing does not increase our bottom line typically. And so we're in a position to offer value to our clients by describing that the solution may not require more of something, but rather less of something, maybe not even an audiovisual solution at all. So one example recently, there's tremendous amount of innovation being pressured on us to say, what is the future boardroom for the hybrid participation model? A 30-seat room with a long table that looks like a bowling alley to the camera on the narrow wall. We're happy to solve that as an industry with 16 cameras encircling the room and AI facial recognition to put faces on screens and customized front end of the Zoom experience to make it appear as though there are windows. Lo and behold, we discover through working closely with the client, the solution for this particular culture of board might be to reorient the room, to change the shape of the table, and arrange things so that a single camera can in fact see all of the faces, because they're quite happy to have conversations in an alternative geometry room. So the solution is architectural and not technical or audiovisual. And if I were in a position to sell cameras and make profit from elaborate broadcast systems and so forth, I would have lost a lot of money, but not done a service to my client. So I offer that as an example of where a consultant is differentiated from a design build firm or an integrator. And of course, as Joey points out, we stand to benefit even more and offer even more value by partnering more closely with those other parties. But I offer it as a necessity for our existence and a path for our ability to grow the industry. Because then we turn around and we talk to our hosts here and others and say, did you know this client is not looking for 16 cameras and elaborate systems that do this? They just want to reorient the room. What product is missing in that scenario? And I think we have a role to drive the industry forward as a result. And then the industry tells us there's no money in that, but we get to that next.
Well, it's always nice when you figure you can solve a display problem with lighting. Let's just use a light for that.
Yeah. We solve a wireless problem with a wire.
They say the best projects are the projects that never get built sometimes.
That was said to me last week. Were you listening? That's funny.
Yeah.
That's actually coincidence.
Yeah, things changed around a little bit. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that I think there's the difference between whether you're solving something with AV or whether you're solving something with hardware, right? We have all gotten used to the idea of AV over IP, and hopefully we don't need to have that conversation anymore. But there are still people on the user side that it's new for them, and they're still trying to understand how their networks should function. And what we're seeing is that some integrators, they finish the job, they do their 1 year, and then they're ghost. And the client is still trying to figure things out. So we're in a position now where we're providing more service after the work is installed. And maybe there's a solution that's not going to be fixed by changing a piece of hardware, but by helping somebody realize how they have to change their workflow now that they're recording on a network versus recording analog or something like that.
So, and Rob brought up a great point about maybe less is more. I think there has been previously, the old DVD was an example for the consultant adding, who added that Blu-ray player anyways, just in case they may use the 1%. And we had we've seen a lot of that reaction, which is just make it simple, right? And a big change happened when we saw the user experience go from a customized control system to a platform. And it's a platform they're consuming all the time.
Yeah.
Is without any, I don't even know what AV is anymore, frankly, right? I don't think does it exist? Maybe it's the vapor, maybe it's the smoke between all of the tech that we're seeing here. But I don't see this as this, I classify it as AV because each one is either a component or it's a part of a larger picture, right?
Yeah.
But there's missing glue right now. What we're not seeing, what I'm struggling with, and where we need to talk through is when I come into a space, where am I going to sit? Where are you going to be? Are you going to be there on Tuesday or Wednesday? Because I'm not going to be there Friday, but I want to get to the same information you are, and I want to be able to find you, and let's use a room, but I don't care which room it is, just as long as there's a room that'll fit us at the given time.
And works the same way as the other room that we used last week.
This is not tech. This is working together, collaborating. Our clients, whatever industry they are, medical, hospitality, corporate, they all have this need to be able to work, and we're just building this space for them. But that part of it, that glue, look around you. Do you see that?
Well, it's worth mentioning the strict requirement that spaces be consistent in their experience, just like you mentioned, Bren, was answered not by the AV industry, but rather by the software industry, the likes of Cisco, Zoom, Microsoft, and the next one, because they've decided on a consistent interface that will be the same no matter where you go. Arguably, for our clients, that's the silver bullet for avoiding help desk calls. When you approach a dark touchscreen, you won't even wake it up because your brain is concerned with hosting a board meeting rather than learning some custom interface that our AV industry has conceived of as an evolution of the learning remote control. But in reality, it's about the consistent software interface that the software industry, the workplace applications industry, the consumer electronics industry has devised. Everything else, arguably, is signal extension.
The interface, though, is just an interface. It is not the experience, right? So and that's what you're talking about in terms of the pieces that we don't see. There is something there that connects the user experience to the interface and to the technology that they're using.
And
one of the things that I'll say, having worked in Silicon Valley, they did a very good job of getting people to accept their products that are not ready, right? How many people will line up for a new phone that doesn't really all work? and happily line up for it and pay a premium for it.
And the Surface Hub's an example of that too. Lining up to buy a Surface Hub for a year, and then it finally never came, right?
Exactly. And we don't have that luxury. So I like to think of our systems have to work like a toaster or an ATM for most of the people we deal with. And as long as we keep things simple
Yeah.
so they can execute what they need to execute, then we're doing our job.
This is our opportunity to finally make good on the experience cliche that hit Infocom 6 years ago, which is to say to consider not just the interface, but what appears on the screen, the wayfinding, the way in which the invite was composed, the way in which the room responds to your presence. It's to adopt those things in the hospitality and entertainment and performance venues that have long ago been solved as ways to manage the audience experience and put them to work in the workplace or in collaboration spaces and so forth.
I didn't know our industry was affected by cliches.
It's built on them, I think. Is
Oh.
And personalize it, right? So we've moved away from the room and the identity of the room being this sort of ubiquitous space that supports all needs. The new normal is it needs to be usable for me and my team when I need it, when I want it. That process doesn't come out of the thin air. It takes you sharing your needs and requirements with other people in the industry and getting the message. Because I believe that some of the products, Teams, I'll give you an example of that, very good at being productive. If you want to continue to make the same thing over and over again really efficiently at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock, you will never meet a stranger, you will never be out of your work comfort zone, and you'll be working like a clock. But that's not going to be creative. That's not going to be innovative. That's not going to build new ideas. That's not going to collide you with people you've never heard of, thought of, or can understand because it was out of your area. So unless you look at the ways, unless we think about the ways that the technology ends up shaping our thought processes and then the end results, we need to challenge those ideas and come up with ways that go, no, some more creativity. It doesn't mean just a whiteboard, right? A whiteboard is not the creative answer, but it is a part of communication and collaboration. And one of the things that I feel very strongly that we do and need to do more of is back into our research and development. When I look at this show, this year, I see a lot of last year.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of next year. I see a lot of struggle to make product here. So what that means for me, when you see challenges are where we innovate, right?
Yeah.
So what we're going to see in innovation is how quickly can I get a product made, manufactured, and sold and distributed. And every one of these people are working on that. And they're competing against each other to see how quickly they can get the product in and out the door. Is that innovation? Is that the right innovation? Well, for the moment, that is the right innovation.
It's a challenge to carry our clients through that uncertain future as well, because it requires that we build them on hedges, that we offer the opportunity to do the next thing, to do it well, but then the possibility that it may not ultimately be the solution and that a change in direction must be made after conduit has been poured into concrete. Another reason for early design.
Let's talk a little bit about innovation before we wrap up. What trends are you seeing that are going to affect the future of Pro AV and make a difference? And have you seen any of those trends on the show floor? I guess not, but
All right, so I'll start at this end.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm seeing over the last year or two that's been very helpful is the manufacturers of the products are taking on more shouldering and bouldering the responsibilities of the design components that previously we had to iterate. So when you look at a direct view LED manufacturer, they are willing to step out of just giving you a product, but give you the drawing kit, give you the parts, give you the installation support, give you a lot more. So I'm seeing a lot of the effort there as a means of saying it isn't just a flat panel or display technology that they're selling you. They're selling you the spare kits that you need for the parts. Okay, that's tech, but they're also selling you the perfection in installation, which we need in some of these technologies. So that's one of the areas I see that I would call is innovative, that's not branded by a particular piece of technology.
For us, the fastest moving thing is virtual production. And you see it here. There's some manufacturers that are showing, the cube or something like that. And that's going to move so quickly because it changes things. It's shifting, it's paradigm shifting in terms of how you can have people participating in the creation of a film or a piece of video. The other thing, and I'm not just saying this because we're at the Sony booth, but the Edge Analytics,
Yeah.
to me, is
Oh.
very thoughtful about how you change the dimensionality of people being remote and people not being in the room. I think it's something that is makes hybrid situations feel more real for the people who aren't there, and I can't wait for a client who wants that product.
Yeah.
And again, it's not just because we're at Sony. I mean, it's impressive.
We had our first project using one of those, and it's incredible. I'll show you some photos afterwards. It's amazing. It's the little work on the name, perhaps, but the trends that we are observing. I would say the Software Codec of the Month Club is going to continue to drive how we design rooms and
The fourth
whatnot.
one. Yeah.
And the other one.
And the other one.
But also just the use of software. Like, if you can use your own software to do things better, faster, more accurately, then that is something that I think is going to really drive a lot of change in the AV industry and our niche of it specifically. And then the other thing that I'm seeing a lot of, and I don't know how to feel about this because it's not really our bag of donuts, but a lot of the manufacturers will sell direct to the end users now. And I don't know what that does to the channel and the way goods and products get to the market, but when you see companies selling direct and skipping the integrators and whatnot, that's kind of always interesting. But I think sometimes you have to do it because the world is not that stable anymore, and we have all sorts of variables affecting supply and all that stuff. So.
Well, and I think part of that is it's also connected to the manufacturers going to software as a solution for a revenue basis, and the only real way you can do that is if you have that relationship. You need the relationship in order to continue the service contract, right?
That's actually going to be my answer then, because you took all the rest of my answers.
What she said.
The software as a solution, minor changes in software, minor evolutions in software experience, I think could potentially have massive implications on the audiovisual industry as we know it. Thinking of one off the top of my head, this phenomenon of hybrid and the expectation that there always is a meeting, never with someone who's not remote, that any meeting is going to have somebody who's not there, and that we used to be concerned with meeting equity and participation, that the person who's remote is made to feel in the room. That's now turned on its ear. The person who's in the room is disadvantaged as opposed to the person being remote, because it's harder to see fully and be seen fully when you're not in a camera that's close to you and so forth. What's evolved from this is the expectation that you have a chat window and you have other media happening simultaneously to while you're consuming the content and participating in the conversation. And of course, Microsoft is starting to answer this with things like Teams Front Row, where you have the meeting presentation, the cast of characters of the participation, your calendar that's relevant, and your chat window on the side. It's interesting to us to think how this could affect the television sizes and aspect ratios of all of the displays that we put into these rooms. It's a funny analogy. The space shuttle solid rocket boosters, the story goes, the diameter is set by train track gauge, which comes from
Utah.
the wagon ruts of carriages. So covered wagon horse-drawn carriages affect 20th and 21st century rocketry. And here these televisions, 4x3 comes from, help me out with theater design, the proscenium opening of a vaudeville or an opera stage, 16:9 broadcast digital television circa the mid-90s. All of this history stands to be upset by the paradigm shift we haven't mentioned, which is hybrid work. And so the expectations coming from the software applications could potentially threaten all of these displays and their aspects and cause us to have to lead our architects into a new shape for AV in the future, which...
Microsoft wants everybody to have 21.9. That's the message.
That's my trend.
So that's actually about all that we have time for. Thank you so much to Sony for having us today. So we'll start down there. We'll go back this way. Where can people find and connect with you?
smwllc.com is the website for us, and that's where I would go. Yeah. And yeah, Mark Peterson. And LinkedIn if you want to find me that way too.
LinkedIn if you want to, but fair warning, I check it maybe once a month, sometime every other, Brenda J. Walker, or just email me, bren@kierkegaard.com.
You can find me at the bar.
He's going to be having a face-melting elderberry flower
Oh, I'm staying at
Chandelier.
at the Chandelier.
At the Chandelier.
Chandelier bar.
Chandelier Bar.
Joey at
Experience.
DangeloConsultants.com.
He's going level 5.
Yeah, level 5 experience with Joey.
Our website is as long as it is easy to remember, technologyarchitecturedesign.com. Spell it all out, and that's it.
And I'm Megan Dutta. You can find me and all of the latest emerging tech news at launch.com/launchcode. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, John.